Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Breakups kinda suck. Even loveless people like myself know that to be true. But that's where my massive brain comes into play, dear listener. If I remain this insufferable, I guarantee that I will never feel the touch of a woman. That way I'll never be crippled by the pain of what happens when she realizes her mistake of touching me in the first place. I'm not lonely because I'm undateable, I'm lonely because I'm a master tactician. Tremble before me, for I am a true son of Dorn. Yeah, that was your first warning that my first attempt at Drake-flavored 40k lore videos are in the works, so stay tuned. But back on topic, everyone knows that the death of a relationship is never a good time. And normally the best advice you could find on the subject is to leave the past in the past and focus on the future. But I think you'd be searching for a long time trying to find anyone whose advice would be to torture your friends by continuing to roleplay your dead relationship through a D&D campaign. If anyone does recommend this course of action, I would highly recommend checking for any hidden cameras, because they are definitely punking you. The story I have for you today stars a player whose desperate need for some dice rolling leads her to be stuck in a dead-end relationship, who apparently is familiar with the art of necromancy, because even the death of the relationship isn't enough to stop this guy. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG-Horrorstories. Enjoy. This week's story comes from Reddit user Coastal Toast and is titled "Player Hijacks a PC in Order to Keep RPing an IRL Relationship After It Ends." This is the story of my first true foray into D&D and the calamitous relationship that led me to it. I grew up in a conservative town in a hyper-religious family that fully bought into the satanic panic rhetoric around Dungeons and Dragons back in the 80s and 90s, and absolutely forbade any of the books from crossing our threshold. Naturally, this made me seek them out immediately. As soon as I cracked them open, I was hooked. You mean I could play collaborative make-believe with other people? TTRPGs, where have you been all my life? In practice, it was a bit more complicated than that. The few friends I had were religious, and if I took out a D&D book in their presence, I would be labeled as a corrupting influence. We'd have to do a whole laying on of hands to pray the demons out, etc., etc. And the kids who played at school were very much of the mindset that having mammary glands immediately disqualified you as a participant. So I was sort of stuck. Here I was, knowing this cool thing existed, but having no one to play it with, and I desperately wanted to play. Fast forward to college. I've gone low contact with my hyper-religious family, I'm in my own place, and I'm starting to work through some heavy emotional stuff. You know, the stuff you can only really start walking through once you get out of a bad situation. I'm not in the best place mentally, but I'm making positive changes. Enter Badgering Bard. I met Badgering Bard on campus, and we shared a couple of classes. I'm not the most observant when people are romantically interested, but with Badgering Bard, it became obvious pretty quickly. I tried to reject him subtly at first, but clearly this guy was not getting the hint. So I met with him and said in no uncertain terms that I was not looking for anything romantic, that I was happy being single and working on myself, and that I would appreciate if he could respect that. His response? Well, I'm a few years older than you and have my life figured out. And from where I'm standing, it looks to me like you don't know what you want. In that moment, all I wanted to do was kick him in the shins, but I left it at, "I'm not interested, thanks, bye," and left. But oh no, it didn't stop there. Badgering Bard stuck around. He sat next to me in class, found where I was studying, and even came to my house because it turned out that he was friends with my roommate. And I'm ashamed to say it, but after 4 months of Badgering Bard constantly hanging around and testing the waters every month or so to see if I'd say yes this time, he wore me down. I know, I wasn't in a great place mentally, remember? I genuinely thought that he would get bored and move on, and I could be free of his constant presence just buzzing around everywhere. I thought it was a weird conquest thing for him, like once he got me, he would realize that I'm actually not that exciting, and just flit on to the next thing that he would start obsessing over. And that's kind of what my roommate led me to believe as well, seeing as he was somewhat familiar with Badgering Bard's dating history. 2 months in, This dude is not letting up. But what he is doing is establishing a pattern of giving me the illusion of choice. For example, he'll ask me, "What do you want for dinner?" And I'll say, "Indian food." And he'd say, "We could get Indian food, or we could get insert whatever choice I want that we will inevitably end up getting." When I push back, it turns into an argument, and I point out that arguing this much early on does not bode well for a long-term relationship. Hey, did you know that GamerSupps has a trading card game? That's right, you too can start collecting V-cards! Okay, look, I don't come up with the names, I just show the product and they pay my bills, alright? V-cards are back in stock, and for a limited time, you can go ahead and card pool from Divine Chaos, or whatever the hell you magic people say. If you're into anime or suspiciously named products, this is for you! Use the link in my description or code Drake at checkout for a hefty discount. Immediately after I comment that I don't think we're a good match long-term, BB invites me to join his good buddies for a D&D campaign. Thwap. Right in the weak spot. I'm immediately skeptical. A, I have not met these friends. What if they're all similar to Badgering Bard? Then I will be increasing my suffering fourfold. B, a campaign is a long-term commitment in and of itself, and I absolutely do not know if I want to be in the same space as Badgering Bard consistently moving forward. But then again, C, it's Dungeons and motherfucking Dragons. I've been waiting for years to find people to play with, and now I've been invited to the table. I agreed to come meet everyone for a session 0 and see if we clicked. Badgering Bard's friends? They were incredible. Our DM had a rich homebrew world and was excited to answer all of my questions, and everyone was extremely patient as I got up to speed with the newly released 4th edition, which was what they were planning to run. I rolled up a fighter because everyone else had established their characters already and they desperately needed a meat shield, and as a new player I wanted something mechanically light. But I freaking loved playing with those guys. In their everyday lives, these were dudes who were shy and a little awkward, but at the gaming table they came alive. The imagination and creativity that poured into every single encounter was truly incredible. Badgering Bard, on the other hand, had elected himself as the party face, and was often just as grating in-game as he was in real life. At the 3-month mark, Badgering Bard and I were out at dinner, and he began to flirt with our server in front of me. She had a book tucked into her apron with the title visible, and he tells her that he loves that book, and he should get her number so they can talk about it sometime. This is a particularly shitty move considering that I had introduced him to said author. Without batting an eye, I told him that I'm going to follow the advice I would give any friend if they told me their significant other had flirted with a server in front of them at a restaurant. I paid for the soda I ordered when I sat down and left. He chased after me with some sob story about how he only did that because he thought I was getting bored in the relationship, and to please give him another chance. I kept walking. I got home to a long, pleading voicemail of him threatening self-harm if I left him. And being a young person struggling with my own mental well-being, that really f***ed me up. So I stayed. Attempting to convince your partner that you're trying to cheat on them as a way of alleviating boredom in the relationship is the same as pulling a fire alarm because you started falling asleep in math class. It's fucking dumb, and if you're gonna go that far, you might as well just commit and start an actual fire because you're gonna end up with the same result. Dude, yikes. Girl, what is you doing? Now, despite my cute little monologue at the beginning, I actually have been in OP's position before. Now, I never gave in and started a relationship with a person, but being the object of someone's obsession, especially one that you yourself are not interested in, really sucks. So I can only imagine how bad OP had it considering how they let themselves get fully trapped in the spiderweb. Badgering Bard's behavior here is gross no matter what angle you look at it, because it's been reeking of manipulation from the word go. Everything from giving you the illusion of choice, to the D&D invites, to the flirting with the waiter, to the threats of harming themselves. Everything he's contributed to the relationship has been an attempt at making what he wants a reality regardless of whatever it is you might want. Badgering Bard saw a person who had been beaten down by a highly controlling upbringing and thought to himself, yes, I will have me some of that, please. Hell, even the relationship itself is something that only came about because he wore you down to the point of utter dejected submission. It's only uphill from here, right? Can you imagine? Mummy, how did you and Daddy meet? Well, Badgering Bard Jr., it all began when Mommy didn't put a restraining order on Daddy, and it got to the point where I forced myself to date him, because being his empty shell of a girlfriend made Mommy want to do a backflip off a building slightly less than being harassed every day. Truly a love story for the modern age. My advice? Well, I'm sure you all saw this one coming, but get the hell out. This is the demon that your family warned you about being attached to D&D, and it comes in the form of a sweaty nerd. Run like your life depends on it, girl, because it very well might. I've heard way too many stories that start with obsession like this and end with lampshades made from human skin. But at least I had D&D, well, sort of. Every time we leveled up, Badgering Bard would come up with a list of suggested feats that I should take for my character. And that illusion of choice would creep back in. I would make my choice and he would start again. You could choose that, or... Our campaign was a grand adventure, but my relationship was becoming more and more problematic. I became convinced that Badgering Bard wasn't listening to a word I said most of the time. I came to find that he had planned out our entire future together, complete with a detailed 5-year plan, without once consulting me. Although I had been very clear on my stance of no kids, no marriage, he started trying to find out my ring size. There was no way I was going to be so passive that I wound up trapped in a marriage just so I could keep playing D&D. That would be insane. Thankfully, I had to move away to continue my education, and I had a perfectly reasonable reason to extricate myself from this relationship. I waited until after we had had our D&D session to give my fighter one last hurrah before I moved. Then I took Badgering Bard out to break the news, and I tried to break up with him. Oh boy, did I try. But no matter how many ways I said it, Badgering Bard just chose not to hear it. It was the most bizarre thing. It's like he just selectively chose not to accept that particular reality, and kept acting as though we would talk when I got to my destination safely, and continue long distance as though it was obviously the plan that we had discussed. But we didn't discuss it. I broke up with him. I was at a loss as to what to do. I could understand being upset by news that you don't want to hear, but just pretending as though you don't hear it was not a tactic I was yet familiar with. So I wrote him a Dear John letter, thinking that maybe seeing it in written form would help it sink in. He kept calling and sending regular emails that I did not respond to or open, and cut off all contact. During this time, I didn't reach out to any of my former D&D group. It didn't feel appropriate to do so, seeing that they were all Badgering Bard's friends, and it felt like it might be intrusive for me to make contact after the breakup. I figured I'd hear from them if I heard from them, but if I didn't, I would understand why, and would simply cherish the time that we had been playing together. Fast forward to the better part of a year later. The first year of my post-degree is done, and I'm back visiting some buds. And who do I run into? The DM from our campaign. He seems surprised but delighted that I'm back in town, and immediately asks if I have enough time to drop in for an evening to play D&D while I'm in town. The following conversation ensues. Me. I obviously loved playing with all of you, but I don't know if that's such a good idea given the circumstances. DM. Circumstances? Me. Well, Badgering Bard and I haven't spoken since the breakup, and I've been trying to give y'all space since then. DM. Wait, back up. You and Badgering Bard broke up. When? Me. When I left town? DM. Wait, as in a year ago? No, wait, what? He's been playing your character. He said you told him you wanted him leveled up for when you came back. Me. Okay, tell me what he told you. Apparently, Badgering Bard had bought himself a one-way ticket on the denial train, and had no intention of getting off at a stop anytime soon. He had told the D&D group that we were still together, but that I was impossibly busy with schoolwork, so don't expect to hear from me. He also told them that I was relaying my choices for feats each level up to him. so that he could keep my character up to date because I was eager to rejoin the campaign the moment I returned. Note, I didn't know where I would end up after graduation, but I had no plans to move back to my college town. Occasionally, he would RP my character and his own if the story called for it, all in an effort to, I don't know, keep me around in spirit? Convince me to come back to him? I still don't really know what the end game was. Eventually, he must have known the charade was going to fall apart. Ultimately, it isn't my responsibility to figure out what was going on in his head, and truthfully, I will probably never know. I told DM the truth, and let him know that he may have to handle badgering Bard with kid gloves when he confronts him about it, because there had been threats of self-harm in the past. I passed on the contact info for two of my buds who had heard tale of our campaign hijinks and were interested in trying TTRPGs for themselves. I did not return to that table. I don't know how that confrontation went, and I don't think it's my place to know. I do know that DM reached out to my two friends, and they have become regulars at his table for a different campaign. And regardless of the train wreck of a relationship that brought me there, I am forever grateful for my first DM and party for opening up a world that was just out of my reach for so many years. We often see the adage, no D&D is better than bad D&D in this subreddit, and those are very wise words. In my case, the D&D was great, but the relationship that led me to it was not. So I offer up my own adage. Great D&D is not worth staying in a shitty relationship for. End of story. Damn, controlled into a life without D&D, only to be subsequently controlled by someone using D&D. Will someone give this OP a chance? Other than badgering Bard, I mean. I got no idea what's going on in Bard's head, but something is busted. Bard's reaction to the consequences of metaphorically kidnapping a person is similar to my reaction when my Honda shitbox starts making concerning noises on the freeway. I look down and I say, ugh, I don't like that. And then I turn the radio up louder so the problem doesn't exist anymore. Car and woman troubles both can end up being costly and don't go away when you ignore them. But only one comes from something that can be considered a possession, and nobody told badgering Bard that it's not the woman. Thank God OP was able to get the hell out of this situation, because this level of delusion coupled with a person this controlling is a recipe for nothing but disaster. The fact that badgering Bard thinks that he can just say, no, to literally being dumped is a colossal red flag. It makes you wonder what other things badgering Bard thinks he can just opt out of. Don't sell all my possessions to fund your gambling addiction. No. Please, badgering Bard, could you let me out of the basement? No. Don't turn me into a skin lampshade. No. Don't send Den of the Drake fan art. No. Hey, stealth segue! That's right, it's time we take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art comes from viewer Allosaur, who depicts the Drake perched upon his mountain of cringe. What's he looking so proud about? Truly, the mind of such a divine being can only be unraveled by the gods themselves. You know, Drake, there are days where I wonder if you can get any more stupid. And then there are days where you have me hold a timer to see how long you can consecutively vape for.
Quiet, Larry. When I become the Vape Lord, the world will tremble before my awesome might.
You're trembling before a nicotine overdose right now, you moron.
The Vape Lord will not be bested by an enemy that tastes like watermelon bubblegum.
Thank you again, Allosaur, for submitting your art. If you'd like to see your fan art featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my channel bio, or upload it to the official Den of the Drake subreddit linked in the description. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and send in your fan art. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon, merchandise, and GamerSupps affiliate links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake. I am Heavy Patreon Guy, and these are my patrons. Drakor, Kare Morchivals, Cam the Badger, Rotator Dot,
Soultaker666212, Cubshite, Ziggy Diggy D00, Neri Delbel, Kiristor Miramoto, and Matthew Mulqueeny. They keep the channel going because this YouTuber weighs 95 kilograms and reads stories at 10,000 words per minute. It costs 400,000 brain cells to be a niche internet micro-celebrity for 12 seconds.
Hey, if you're still here, YouTube thinks you would like this video. And between you and me, I talked to that guy and or girl you're into, and they said they like this video too. Just saying.